Working 15 or 20 hours a week, very easy to make $500,000 to $1 million a year. I had and still have such passion for that deeper connection to the natural world and helping people heal and thrive through that connection to the natural world and the natural ways of being, of moving, of eating, of celebrating.
The sensitivity and sensibility for perceiving something else that is beyond the senses. Whether we want it or not, whether we do it or not in this life, it's deeply ingrained in our DNA from generation to generation.
I started going back through scarcity and fear. That felt like the universe would stop propelling me in the direction I was meant to be. There were no utensils. It was eat with your hands. And then we gathered around the fire. It's such a beautiful question.
Welcome. Today we're starting the very new format at Wholegrain Wisdom, where we're bridging ancient wisdom and science to finally reveal they're the same fundamental truth, just expressed in different languages. And what better person than Ret Taylor to start with? First of all, how's it going? And then I'll make a little bit of an intro for our audience if they don't know you.
Cool. Yeah. Thanks. I appreciate it. It's going great, honestly. In fact, you're catching me at an amazing time in my life. I just came off perhaps the thing I'm most proud of in my whole career, which was leading 7 amazing men on a vision quest in the Utah desert and allowing them to really remove all distractions and really reconnect with nature, with themselves, and with their visions and their truth. And I held space for them and sent them prayers from our base camp. Checked on them, make sure that they were safe, and nurtured them. Normally, I'm the one sitting in vision, but this time I was playing with the other side of the yin to the yang, and nurturing and being there for them. So I'm coming off the thing I'm perhaps most proud of in my life. In my career, my 25-year career.
Amazing. You've been a little bit of a mama bear for them, it seems to.
Yeah, which isn't typically my style or my inclination, but and that's why I wanted to play with that, and I actually found it quite aligned actually with my path as it's being shaped.
Amazing. Wow. I can't wait to go deeper into this. I have so many questions for you, but first let me make a quick intro. So what I understood, what I could find from you, and then add on top of that whatever you feel it deserves extra highlighting. You're a founder, a guide, and a facilitator for high performers reconnect with what truly matters. You went through the roller coasters of the startup life, and all of this work that I'm doing, it starts from very similar journey. So we'll go into the pain stories at some point as well. And right now I'm understanding you just exited relatively recently your company, and you became the transformational lead for retreats and rites of passages. Also what you just mentioned, I love it, can't wait to go deeper. And you're all about helping others to remember who they are and why the heck are they here to do, right?
Yeah.
Wow. How do you, like, tell me in a nutshell, how did you get there? Because I have the feeling that you've been through hell so that you could understand why the heck you were there yourself as well. What's this first part of the journey for you?
Yeah. Well, you're right. Been through a lot, and a lot of it was really self-imposed. And I would say that the first part of the journey was up until 10, really a lot of scarcity in my house, and this sense that it was making money was really hard. And when I was 10 years old, I found myself in a bus station with my mom and my sisters, and we were moving for the third time in a row in a year, and we were doing it by bus, if that tells you anything. And I just decided that I didn't want to be dragged around anymore. And I was 10 years old, and I decided to go get better grades, and I took on every single dog walking, leaf raking, shovel snow shoveling job, lemonade stand I could, and I saved all that money, and it was really my way of addressing that wound of creating safety for myself and really buying my autonomy, my sovereignty as a little boy. And I went on to spend the next 30 years um, working really hard and thinking that hard work was the way. And it didn't. If it wasn't hard, it didn't have value for me. I became an entrepreneur. I became a competitive marathon runner, and then an ultra marathon runner. And I put a lot of perverse pride in being out able to outrow everybody around me. And I realized about 2 years ago while I was climbing Denali, the tallest mountain in North America, the they say the hardest mountain among the seven summits, certainly the coldest and the longest. Um, I realized when we had to face the choice of staying on the mountain during a massive 2 week storm or heading down. Um, I realized that I'm done doing hard things for the sake of doing hard things. I'm done, you know, being a masochist, and I started. I realized that joy and ease were much more my flow. Now I couldn't have gotten there without the dark nights, the struggle, the marathons where I literally blacked out, don't remember whole parts of the race. I mean, miles after miles. All the hard things I did allowed me to see a different side of that. And these days, I'm all about alignment and joy and ease, and I'm about going into and working in my zone of genius and not forcing it in my zone of competence or incompetence or even my zone of excellence, which can be that trap where I found myself for many, many years. And yeah, man, it's the joy and the ease, and it's the alignment, and it's going with what feels right and real and you. And maybe it's hard for other people, but it's easy for you because it's your gift in life. It's the reason you're here on earth. And so yeah, it's been a hard way of coming about that truth, that way of life now. But I let go on that mountain. I I envisioned myself rowing a boat up this river that I had gotten in back when I was 10 years old, and I was just white knuckling my way through. And there were rocks and rapids, and I just envisioned myself rowing, and I was facing forward, rowing forward, and I was guiding where I would go, and I was forcing it, absolutely forcing it. And in my sleeping bag, as that storm bared down on us, I let go. I somatically opened my fists, and I envisioned the oars slipping away, and I felt myself shifting direction to the point where I'm drifting backwards, and I'm looking forward. I'm still looking forward, but I'm drifting backward with all the confidence and faith that the river would carry me around the rocks and rapids where I needed to go. And it was this braided channel, and it knew where I was meant to go. The only thing that could upset that would be as if I lost faith and I grabbed those oars again. And I started going back through scarcity and fear, going back to doing the hard thing. Or if I looked over my shoulder where I was going and lost my faith, I felt like the universe would stop propelling me in the direction I was meant to be. And ever since then, I've been going in my flow. And I came back. We left the mountain before the storm hit. We had a very easy route down. We flew out, came back. I talked to my business partner. I said, "Dude, I'm ready to sell." He said, I'm with you, bro. Let's go." And it was a very serendipitous way that we sold the business. And since then, I've just been going with joy and ease. And honestly, the outcome of that exit was not life changing, even not even close. So it's not like I've got, a pile of money to just to now I can go do whatever I want. That's not the case at all. And it's what can test that faith too. So
Amazing. Wow. I get goosebumps because it, beside the story itself, which is fascinating, it's fascinating when you get to the other side and you start to listen to other folks that are doing the journey, and you can really understand the complexity of, like, everybody has their own journey, their own story. I have a similar way. I mean, one night in Colombia after getting married, doing shamanic work and ayahuasca and so on, and reconnecting, finally understanding, why all of that pain, all of those challenges, they've all made sense. And finally, I could reconnect the dots. So I do feel you completely. And I'm curious now to dig a little bit on this concept of the rite of passage. We can unwrap it in different ways, especially, I think, at some point, I would love to touch it from the masculine energy point of view, because I feel there's definitely right now, after lots of work on the feminine energy, emancipation, and all of this, we're now in a position where, okay, guys, we need to figure out what to do, because like this is not working. But how did you reconnect this kind of work that you're doing with your own journey, and then understanding that, yeah, we did lose all of these rituals, all of this knowledge that was completely present in the ancestral way of living? Guide us and guide me a little bit through that, and also with the work that you're doing right now.
yeah. Well, I love this topic. It's my favorite. My vision quests began maybe 20 years ago. I'd say probably 2007, when I was going through another transition. And I've been an entrepreneur since 2006. I was going through another transition and just felt the absolute need to go remove myself from the city, from my people, and go reconnect with nature and do it alone with pure solitude and silence and no distractions. And I grew up really, having a deep affinity for Native American cultures and really reading everything I could. So I had some familiarity with the Manitou and the Sundance and the Lakota ways and the Cheyenne and the Arapaho, the Nez Perce. And I, with very little context, I went and emulated that. And so my first couple of vision quests were really just that. It was just a removal. It was this ancient instinctual need to go and put myself in nature alone without distractions, including food, and to just spend the time there to be empty, to be disconnected, and to then allow the visions to come to me. And they led to starting a business. Another one led to selling that business. Another one led to starting a different business. And these would go on to mark really my journey, the pivotal points in my journey. And they would take place every 3, 4, 5 years. And then 2 years ago, I did a vision quest in the Utah desert, and I had a bit more context this time. And the visions were truly powerful. The first vision was about becoming a much more whole person. You talked about the masculine and the feminine. And it took me 2 years to really realize what that vision was about. And it took going to an amazing school called the School of Lost Borders. And Scott Daly, who is my instructor there, he helped me make sense of that vision through mirroring, the practice of mirroring back. And but the second vision on that vision quest was, there I am on the end of the third night, and I've been looking out at this big sandstone, this big orange rock, and there I am seeing this massive monolithic rock. And all of a sudden, in front of my eyes, it turned into this matriarch elephant. And she was walking away from me and she was looking over her shoulder. And she was kind of beckoning to me. And she said, come on, we have to go. We have to go to Landalozi Game Reserve in the wild eastern corner of South Africa. Very, very specific. And I thought to myself, well, that was a clear vision. But at this time in my life, I really don't have the time or the resources for that sort of trip. But I put it out there into the universe and I fed it from time to time. And then fast forward a year and a half, I have just sold my company. And I was connected with a man, Yanis Cherkis, and he and I had one of those conversations where we were supposed to go for half an hour and it went for 3 hours. And at the end, he said, listen, I do this thing. Something's telling me I ought to share this with you. But I go to this place. It's in South Africa. It's called Landalozi, and it's in the wild eastern corner of South Africa. The same words the elephant shared with me. And I said, Janusz, I'm in. Let's go. And so I ended up going to Landalozi, and I met Boyd Vardy, who wrote an amazing book called The Lion Tracker's Guide to Life. And I tracked lions with Boyd and Renius and Alex for 4 days. And really, it was much more than just tracking lions. It was about the track of your life and following it. But I shared that story with a number of people, a number of friends, and they all said, man, that sounds cool. Africa sounds great, but tell me about this thing you did, this vision quest. Like, what, you just go sit in nature and disconnect? That sounds awesome. I want some of that. And so when I got back, I started putting together my next vision quest. And I thought there would be 2 or 3 other people who wanted to do this with me. And it turned into 7 and really more than that. And 7 felt like more than enough. And at the same time, Scott from the School of Lost Borders, he helped me understand that I could become more of a whole person by tapping into my feminine side, my yin. And that's why I decided not to be on the tip of the spear, not to do the hard thing, be in the vision quest. Really, I'm very comfortable out there. I feel it aligns for me. And so this was my growth edge, which was staying back in base camp and holding space for those who are out there and praying for them and really being behind enemy lines, not on the front line. And that was new for me. And honestly, it felt really, really good, really good.
I'm curious to understand a little bit more. So when you talk about the rite of passage, I also have in my mind, those ancient cultures educating the boys until the certain age where then they're really ready to make the step into manhood. How does this connect with what you do, and what are the key kind of steps or structures somehow? And especially, I'm curious, for anyone out there that is still, I guess watching these videos, they're already wondering and they're already understanding that the hustle is not the way, but they still don't have, the right tools, the right routes, the right triggers, so to say, okay, this is the time I will do just that. Guide me, so to guide the others a little bit into these steps, and especially what do they mean for our soul, for our inner existence.
Yeah, it's really beautiful. It's typically in indigenous cultures, it would be for young men to then become men. I really feel like a lot of us are still young men these days, and we haven't had those rites of passage, and we're still very adolescent in a lot of our ways. But at its essence, it's really 3 phases, and it's the severance phase. It's the death lodge. It's the removing of the parts and pieces and stories and beliefs and habits that don't serve us, that either no longer serve us or never served us at all. And so there is this severance, and it's also severing yourself from the tribe or your people, whatever that is for you. And it's a removal. And then there's the threshold stage. And the threshold is the vision quest. And the etymology of the word threshold is it was a room where the wheat was beaten against the floor, and the wheat was separated from the chaff. So the wheat was separated from the stalk, and the stalk was the severance, and that was the piece that was what's no longer needed, and it could go leave, and it could go be where the animals would sleep on, or even just discarded. But then what you had was the wheat, and the wheat was then meant to go and nourish the people. And so the third phase of the vision quest of that rite of passage is the integration and the incorporation, the making of the body. And so you take the parts and pieces that have value, that have nutrition, and the most important part is coming back and bringing those pieces to your people, your family, your tribe, your company. In one guy's case on our vision quest, your country. And that's really, truly the most important part.
Wow. I love the symbolism of this. And I used to be a person that, I don't know, for some reason at some point in my life, I completely discarded all of this knowledge, even though I have a classical education from Italy. I was forced to study ancient Latin and Greek. So probably at some point the hate for all of these lectures became so high that I didn't want to have anything anymore to do with this. But now I'm slowly going back to all of that. And the value, I mean, also at the beginning when you say you have severance, but that severance helped you grow until a certain point, right? Because I mean, of course, you're not born as a grain perfectly already. No, I'm just curious because you also talked about the balance of energies and understanding how they can serve you. It seems to me that probably too many people have the understanding that people like us that do these kind of things, we are like, we've taken the shaman lifestyle, and we are no longer involved into, like, the normal society and life. I guess it's clearly not the case. So I'm curious, in this specific case for you, the work that you're doing with entrepreneurs, with leaders, how does this then connect back to the actual life that they're doing in business, in the family, in society, whatever it is?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad you brought that up. I've spent a lot of time reading and researching and really trying to understand the old ways, and I've found a lot of resistance. Like I said, this is my favorite topic, and yet a lot of the information that's out there, a lot of the literature, feels very unapproachable to a lot of people, and it's a turnoff. And so, one of the tenets that I've always carried throughout my career has been approachability, and really wanting to bring these ancient concepts back. Like you said, these are things that have been forgotten, that have been sort of lost for one reason or another, but they're deep within us. They're deep within our DNA. And there's a reason why they existed for the millennia of time that they did. It's that they work. And I really feel like, a big part of why I'm so passionate about this is that I didn't have rites of passage growing up, or even as a 40-year-old man. In America, we get our driver's license. We go to the prom, maybe.
We get drunk in the
Yeah,
prom.
yeah, and and we do this secretly, away from the elders, so that the elders don't witness it. Whereas throughout our human existence, it's been the opposite, and the elders have witnessed it and been a part of it and shared in it. And when Black Elk, a Lakota elder, he he had his vision at 9, and he didn't share it with anyone. And it was a big, grand vision. And by the time he was 16, it was eating him up. And he was an extremely angsty teenager. And his parents finally sat him down with the medicine man, and the medicine man coaxed his vision out of him. And he shared the vision, and instead of the medicine man saying, "Wow, well, that's pretty crazy," he said, "That's amazing." And then he called in, he said, "Let's reenact it. Let's show it to the entire Lakota nation." And they had 4 horses for each of the 4 directions and 4 riders, and they had 4 maidens and all the elders, and they put on this pageant that very next day so that everyone could witness Black Elk and feel his vision. And Black Elk went from this very angry, very angsty, very maladjusted teenager to a very proud young man. And I think about how we might treat Black Elk today versus how he was treated by his elders. And what happened was his elders saw him, and he felt seen, and that made a massive difference for him. And so growing up, I rarely had that. And I don't know many people I grew up with who had that. And so I feel it's very important to bring these rites of passage back. In fact, I think it's a crucial part of what can help us heal and become more human.
Yeah, I totally, like, I have the vibration of what you're saying. And I always share the story. I think it was a TED talk or some stuff I read back in the past, in quite some dark times, like the difference between the tribal way of dealing with these kind of visions or energies and power versus the Western way, right? Like when a kid is neurodiverse, and like Wholegrain Wisdom and the podcast itself, the version before the new format we're doing now, it was all about understanding the founder and the pain story behind the entrepreneur story, because 73% of entrepreneurs out there are neurodiverse. And in the face of neurodiversity, the West normally tries to treat you, to send you to, psychotherapists, psychiatrists at some point, and in the worst cases, they even put you at rest with medicines. In the tribal way, as you mentioned, these people were brought directly to the shamans, and they were actually treated like special people with an enhanced sense of the sensitivity and sensibility for perceiving something else that is beyond the senses. And so they were heard, they were seen, and so on. I want to connect this kind of topic with one thing that I believe is becoming more and more of like importance in our society, which is the authentic masculinity. As I mentioned before, like I think we just coming out from a very long time where women are retaking more or less somehow their power, and of course there's still much more work to do, but we're behind. And I've seen and I've read a lot of other people talking about this, and it connects to the energy of the masculine side, being able to handle it, being able to balance it, even at some point to the medical conditions of the testosterone crisis that we are living. I'm the first one who publicly shares that during COVID, when I hit my really rock bottom with the body, with the physical health, I didn't have stamina or whatever kind of things down there for so long. And I used to believe that you wake up with a boner in the morning just when you're a teenager, when you have the peak of your hormones. The reality is that a healthy male actually wake up like that every single morning, and that's a very clear sign that everything in the system is working well. What's your understanding? What's your knowledge, and especially also what's your vision quest from this? Because I understand that you're also working quite a lot on this regard.
Yeah. It's I read Iron John a year or so ago, and I've been really leaning into the healthy masculine just as I also lean into the feminine. But the way I see it is we've really, and the way Iron John describes it is we've caged our wild man, and our wild man has been stuck in a cage. And from time to time, it's important to let our wild man out. And too often we don't do that, or too often we feel guilt when we do, and we don't let him run free through the woods, howling at the moon. And that has been stripped away from us. It's actually played a big role in my evolution and my inner work. That wild man, and I realize I've always gravitated toward the wild man. I grew up in a house with two sisters and my mother, and I always sought masculine energy. And then as a young man, I did stupid things, as young men do. Um, and what I was doing was letting that wild man out of the cage from time to time. And there's a healthy way to do that, which I'm much more in tune with these days. And there's an unhealthy way. But like you said, we have to go through it all in order to become who we are. But
how do you guide, or how would you suggest somebody to develop and nurture the healthy way to let the wild man out?
yeah, it's such a beautiful question. For me, my answers always lie in nature and our evolution. And I think back on our ancestors and how they did that, and how they were. And so I have clients who are tapping into their wild man in different ways. One is in a very intentional, very spiritual way, becoming a hunter. Just 2 nights ago, I had 20 friends up to my house here in Boulder to gather around a fire. We had dinner. There were no utensils. It was eat with your hands. And then we gathered around the fire, and we each shared something that's like deeply, deeply alive for us, whether that was on the very difficult end of the spectrum, or that the end of the spectrum that says, God, I just don't even want to brag about this, but I'm just so good right now. But most of it, honestly, was the latter, or the former, rather, the scary side of things, or the darker side. And but yeah, and I shared with the guys, listen, this is we know this deeply. We know how to do this. Gather as men around a fire and share. There's very little instruction necessary here. You'll know. And they did, and it was medicine. And that's a beautiful type of medicine. It's a type of medicine that we've forgotten, and we have gotten away from really in the last 120 years, when we started synthesizing medication and creating pills and telling people that if it wasn't built in a laboratory, it's not effective or safe. Whereas our ancestors spent eons understanding herbs and minerals and algae and fungi, and bringing those natural remedies to us. It's also the fire. The fire is deep within us. I mean, the fire is where we did all the best things. We warmed ourselves. We warmed our food. We warmed each other. We made love. We created societies. And thought deeply, and were held and safe by the fire. And so that's the kind of thing that I think can be a very healthy medicine, can be really good for that masculine energy, for a very healthy way of letting the wild man out of the cage.
Have you ever been in a situation with some people that would consider all of this that you're suggesting too primitive or too rude, let's say, in some ways? Like, I'm curious to understand, like, there's there's so much extremism, right, and polarities in the discussion right now. I really strive for finding a narrative that can be integrated among all of us. Like even for somebody that maybe is not comfortable, I can imagine like with, I don't know, insects or dirt or whatever. Like what's the immediate step that at least you can start to reconnect with your subconscious, because as you said, this is stuff that whether we want it or not, whether we do it or not in this life, it's deeply ingrained in our DNA from generation to generation. And that's why, I mean, it's undeniable. If you look at the fire, you just are in awe. Like you don't know how to explain it, but you are, you just, that's it.
Yeah, and that's it. And that's part of it too. We don't need to explain it. It comes from that first knowing. Before we had our prefrontal cortex, before we needed to make sense and logic and words and figures out of everything, we had our gut instinct. And our gut instinct can tell us that looking into a fire feels right, that having a view of water feels right, that looking up at the stars feels right. And so it's these things that, honestly, like I said, it's very important to me to be approachable. These are the things that are universal. Um, there are a few people, there's like 15% of people who really are not impacted by nature's awe and wonder. Um, I have a friend who grew up on a dairy farm in upstate New York, and I brought him out to Colorado. And after 3 hours of showing him the most beautiful waterfalls and changing leaves on aspen trees, he said, "Dude, where are the bars? Like, let's go somewhere." And
Probably there's a lot of childhood trauma to untrap from the farm life in the past.
he said, "Listen, I grew up on a dairy farm. There's a reason I live in New York City." But for the other 85% of us or more, that deeper connection with the natural world is innate, and it needs very little explaining. And so it's the reason why I use the fire example. I think we can all agree that there's just something about a fire. There's something about waves rolling onto the beach that's inviting and beautiful and even awe-inspiring or mesmerizing. There's something about natural bodies of water. And the reason is when we were nomads on the savannah, we had to go from water to water, and we weren't safe until we made it to the next body of fresh water. So when we saw that water, there was something that triggered. We said, "Oh, okay, we're safe now." And so we still feel that deep in our bones. It's why we pay extra for a room with a view of the water. It's why we love that so much. It's a safety mechanism for us. So, yeah.
Wow, amazing. Let me close the conversation. I want to ask you one last thing, which is regarding legacy and impact in general. You're doing a lot of work regarding long-term kind of vision for yourself and leaving a legacy. I'm curious first, what is it for you that you're doing, and what do you want to live here like after this life, but especially how do you guide other people to understand that, and to really make the step, because I feel this is probably the hardest question to either make in some cases when you don't know what you're talking about, and how to answer, because in so many cases I have encountered situations where people don't know what to reply. They never had enough time. They didn't have, they didn't gift to themselves the time to reflect on this.
People don't do that. I have, I've gifted that to myself through my vision quests, and I've put a lot of thought into it, and I've really structured my life around that. I had two businesses ago, before Ned, the natural remedies company, and before what I'm doing today. That was extremely lucrative. I was working 15 or 20 hours a week. It was very easy to make $500,000 to $1 million a year, and I could still be doing that for years to come. But it was sending lots of used products into landfills, and it felt wrong. It felt like a complete misalignment of values. I started that company when I was 27, before I really knew myself deeply. Um, and so once I realized the impact of that business, it felt very misaligned, and I thought to myself, I could do this and have a very easy life, but I envisioned myself on my deathbed, or even in my 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s, feeling pretty upset with myself that's what I'd spent a career doing. Meanwhile, I had and still have such passion for that deeper connection to the natural world, and helping people heal and thrive through that connection to the natural world, and not only nature itself, but the natural processes, and the natural ways of being, of moving, of eating, of celebrating, and the whole rhythm of it. And so I thought it would be a real shame if I didn't move in that direction. Now, my last business was that move, and I found myself helping tens and tens of thousands, maybe actually hundreds of thousands of people find a deeper connection to the natural world and to heal and thrive through it. But I found myself in an office, stuck in an office looking at spreadsheets for the last 7 years. And and that felt very,
Talking about the cage, right,
yeah,
of your man energy.
yeah. And I would go and I would do things like climb Denali, and I would let the wild man out, but then I'd come back, and for months upon months I would just be caged up. And I thought, this is no way to live, and I missed that little mark on the Ikigai diagram, that Venn diagram of what you're meant to do and what the world needs, and how you. I missed it slightly, and I realized that what I'm really truly meant to do is what I always wanted to do, and that's what the world wants from us, what we most want. And so I moved in that direction. I let go of those oars, and with full faith and without a backstop or a safety net, in full faith in that direction. And I just have faith that the universe will, and so far has, filled my sails and smoothed the way, and opened doors like this one right here with you. And it's a beautiful faith that's very important to me. And so my experiment right now is what happens when I keep that faith, and when I move with full authenticity and full alignment, and I am truly myself in every sense of it, and even working to become more myself through the wholeness of all sides. My hypothesis is that great things can happen, and it's important to me to also show that to other people, what that can look like. Because as you said, a lot of people don't even stop to think about it. And we're very fortunate. I'm a very, very fortunate person to be born in this country in this time and age, and to be able to think this broadly. I know many people around the world who are unable to have that sort of, just even that headspace. And like I said, I grew up in scarcity. I grew up in survival mode. And when you're in survival mode, these big picture thoughts just, they don't even, it's a blessing. And so I feel that responsibility, and it's important to me to do that for myself, and also for those that don't have such a privilege.
I love this. I was just, you maybe seen my eyes, because I was looking at a quote that I recently saved, very, very deeply connected what you're saying, which is, by deciding to remain in your own darkness, you also not allow others to choose to remain in darkness, to be able to and feel okay to see the light. So thank you for seeing the light, thank you for showing it, and thank you for living it, because by doing so, you're not just doing pleasure and great thing for yourself, but you show others that actually living this life is possible, and probably, as we said, like much funnier, much better, much more fulfilling, much less stressful than being an asshole.
Yeah, joy and ease. That's what came out of the Vision Quest with 7 CEOs who went in there very serious. And what came out, what almost to a man, each one of them found was deeper alignment. I want joy. I want ease. I don't need to do the hard thing any longer. And joy and ease became our motto. It's what we share now as a group. All right, brother. See you next time. Joy and ease.
Love this. Love this. My smaller part of the bigger vision on this case, it's building quantum founders, which is the entrepreneur. The way that I see it is the entrepreneur that understands really deeply is or her inner power and decides to flow with it instead of always constantly, fighting against the stream, this river that we constantly want to go upstream because for some reason they made us believe it was a good choice or like a wise choice, but it's such a waste of energy.
It really is. It really is. And everybody wants you to keep rowing harder and harder because if you don't, then they're forced to look at themselves.
Thank you so much, Red.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Really.